Of course. Harry's a rewrite of your text, keeping the same emotional depth, but tightening the language a bit, enhancing the flow, and sharpening some of the emotional punches. Rewritten version. Hi, I'm Manfred. On Thanksgiving, my parents called me ungrateful, right to my face, in front of everyone. But that wasn't the real betrayal. The real betrayal had been years in the making, draining my college fund to bankroll my stepbrother, deleting me from the family montage like I never existed. I stayed quiet for years. Not anymore. I arrived 38 minutes late. Not by accident, on purpose. I figured if I slipped in after everyone was wine-drunk and carb-loaded, I could blend into the background. I was wrong. The second I stepped inside my father's house, the house I grew up in, though it looked nothing like it anymore, everything shifted, just slightly, a half-second too long before greetings came, smiles that didn't reach the eyes. Marlene, my stepmother, clattered toward me in heels too high and arms spread too wide. There. "She is!" she sang out, all saccharine. "We were just talking about you." Liar. She hugged me. A quick, cold shoulder tap that reeked of department store perfume and control. Across the room, Beckett was already holding court, whiskey glass in hand, surrounded by uncles and a church family friend. He lifted his glass toward me, the way you might acknowledge someone you sort of recognized from high school. I scanned for Sel. She was by the kitchen island, laughing too hard, too perfectly. She belonged here. I didn't. They'd turned Thanksgiving into a Pinterest spread. Golden leaves, personalized place cards, even a pie bar. I bet Marlene paid someone to stage it. It didn't look like family. It looked like branding. I drifted toward the dining room, catching snippets of conversation. Real estate deals, Beckett's promotion, Harlan's VFW retirement speech. Nobody asked me how I was. I didn't expect them to. Then came the toast. Marlene clinked her wine glass and stood. "Before we eat too," she said, "I just want to say how thankful I am for all of you. This year has been challenging, and yet, here we are, stronger, closer, more united than ever." My jaw tightened. She swept her gaze across the table. "Let's raise a glass," she said, "to this incredible family, to those who show up, who contribute, and yes, even to the ungrateful ones." Laughter exploded around the table. My ears burned. I didn't look up. I didn't need to. I knew exactly who she meant. No one stopped her. They just drank. I didn't touch my glass. Instead, I stared at my plate and wished I hadn't come. Harlan, my father, cleared his throat and changed the subject. Classic. Let it pass. Pretend it didn't happen. "We've got turkey," he said. "3 kinds of stuffing. Let's dig in." I wanted to scream. Instead, I smiled. Barely. Half an hour later, over dessert, it got worse. Marlene was 3 glasses deep by then, her tongue loose. "You know," she said to no one in particular, "Maddie is probably home with her books and cats when she's not lawyering. Isn't that right, dear?" I bit the inside of my cheek. Beckett smirked. "Saving the world, one angry email at a time, ah," he said. Polite chuckles floated up. Mostly, though, the room tensed. Just for a second. Not enough to stop anything. They moved, all like they always did. I stayed silent. That's the thing about this family. They don't stab you in the back. They smile and do it face to face. And when you flinch, your tongue's too sensitive. I sipped my water, my hand steady, even if my chest wasn't. I scanned the room. Every detail of the house had been redone, modernized, sterilized. Not one photo of me on the walls, but Beckett's face was everywhere. Graduations, vacations, a ribbon-cutting ceremony. His success was their pride. I was their inconvenience. I knew better than to speak. Speaking always made it worse. Of course, Harry's a rewrite of your passage, keeping its intensity and emotional arc but tightening. The prose for even sharper impact, clearer pacing, and emotional clarity. Harlan's disappointed sigh, Marlin's fake concern, Beckett's smirk, Sel's silence. They played their parts well. And I was cast as the difficult one, the outsider who couldn't just let go. But tonight something shifted. It wasn't rage. It wasn't even sadness. It was silence. Sharp, cold, absolute. I didn't belong here. Maybe that wasn't a tragedy. Maybe that was the freedom I'd been too afraid to claim. I smiled, lifting my glass, not to them, but to myself, and made a silent promise. Never. Again, I set my glass down with more grace than I felt. No one noticed. Or maybe they did, and just didn't care. Either way, I was done expecting acknowledgement. Harlan cleared his throat, tapping his fork against his glass with the practiced air of a man used to obedience. I'd like to say a few words. It's Thanksgiving after all. God, here we go. Family is the cornerstone of legacy, he said, staring straight ahead. And legacies, they don't build themselves. They require sacrifice, commitment, loyalty. Marlene nodded, hands folded neatly in her lap, a picture of smug approval. We've taken steps to ensure everything we've worked for stays in the right hands, Harlan continued. My stomach dropped. He didn't say my name once. But the omission was louder than any shout. He listed Beckett's new business, Sel's thriving restaurant, praised their dedication to down the family vision. No mention of the firm I built from scratch. No note of my pro bono work, no sign I had ever mattered. And those who walk away from family, he said, voice heavy with false regret, shouldn't expect the family to walk with them. Beckett smiled, slow and satisfied. Sel looked down at her plate. No one else flinched. I waited for someone, anyone, to say, that's not fair, but of course they didn't. They were all in on it. Just when I thought the night couldn't humiliate me more, the lights dimmed. We have a little surprise, Marlene trilled, practically vibrating with delight. A video tribute, 40 years of family memories. The screen flickered to life. Photos. Harlan in uniform. Marlene pregnant with Sel. Beckett at soccer games, Christmas mornings, beach vacations, dance recitals. Not one photo of me, not one. A full decade of my life, gone, like it had never existed. Then, briefly, a backyard barbecue shot. There I was, blurred, tucked behind everyone else, unnamed, forgotten. A kid at the table whispered, "Who's that lady?" My chest tightened, my fists curled under the napkin. This wasn't neglect, it was precision, a calculated deletion. The lights came back on. Applause filled the room. No one looked at me, they just moved on. I sat frozen, surrounded by smiles that felt like knives. I excused myself, found the bathroom. In the mirror, I didn't see sadness. I didn't even see anger. I saw recognition. They didn't see me because they didn't want to, because acknowledging me meant acknowledging everything they had taken. This wasn't about a toast or a missing photo. It was about being written out of a life, page by page, until there wasn't even a footnote left. When I returned to the table, dessert had been served, pumpkin pie, whipped cream, perfect slices. No one asked where I had gone. I stared at my plate. I didn't taste a thing. While they laughed and praised each other, one thought played over and over in my mind. I'm not one of them anymore. Maybe I never was. I left my plate untouched, slipped away to the guest room, still called the office, though nothing important had ever been done in it. I sat on the edge of the futon, heels still on, staring at the cheap beige carpet, and the memories began to bleed in. Another night. Another echo. My law school graduation. I had walked across the stage alone. Others had parents, siblings, girlfriends waving signs and crying into cameras. My chair sat empty. I told myself they must be late, stuck in traffic. But they never came. Later, Marlene shrugged it off. We had dinner plans. It was Beckett's birthday. You're only 30 once. That day, I learned exactly where I ranked, below convenience. The memory clapped in my ears like ghost applause. I pulled out my phone, scrolling aimlessly, needing noise to drown it out. That's when I saw the old email. Months after graduation, from the bank. The college fund my mother had worked double shifts to save for me, gone. Transferred out. Signed by Harland. I had called him, voice shaking. His reply? Beckett had an opportunity. He needed a push. You're smart. You'll figure it out. No apology. No remorse. Marlene's response? What's done is done, sweetheart. Dwelling won't bring the money back. I took out private loans. Worked 2 jobs that first year. I kept the emails. Not for revenge, not then, but because some part of me needed proof that it had happened, that I wasn't crazy. I buried it, swallowed it, convinced myself it was just a tough decision for the family. Now I saw it clearly. It wasn't one betrayal. It was a pattern, and I had been trained to stay silent so long I forgot what it felt like to tell the truth. They stole from me, not just money, not just recognition. They stole my place, my voice, my belonging. I stood up, feeling something settle in me at last. Not sadness, not rage, clarity. Would you also like me to help polish this into a final version that feels like it could be part of a short story or novel excerpt? We could also create a title or next scene if you want. Wow. What you've written here is very powerful. It already reads like the raw draft of a gripping novel or a personal essay that's aching with emotion, tension, and truth. You have a lot of natural momentum and emotion in the story, and the ending hits especially hard with that memory about the missed goodbye. Here's a cleaned up and slightly more structured version of your text, keeping all your original feeling and voice intact, but making it flow a bit more smoothly. Paragraph breaks added where natural minor grammar and spelling fixes. My reflection in the window. The woman staring back at me looked composed, but I could see the cracks behind her eyes. 9 cracks that had been spidering out for years. I wasn't weak. I had survived without them, built something from ashes they pretended never existed. And tonight, something shifted for good. They wanted a version of me that played along, smiled, accepted crumbs, and called it love. But I'm not that woman anymore. I opened my encrypted cloud folder, one I hadn't touched in years, and skimmed through the old documents, college fund bank logs, notarized signatures, screenshots of Beckett's startup site from the same month my fund disappeared. I hovered over the contact labeled Os Deline. She was the only one in this family who ever treated me like a person. If anyone still had the guts to speak the truth, it would be her. I tapped her name and typed, "Can we talk tomorrow?" My thumb hovered a second longer than it needed to. Then I hit send. 7. The morning light made everything in my apartment look softer than it really was. I stared at my phone. The silence after that sent message growing heavier by the hour. Then it rang, Dell's name flashing on the screen. I hesitated. My first instinct was to let it go to voicemail, but some stubborn part of me needed to hear what she had to say. Maybe I wanted to give her one last chance. "Hey," she said, all breezy and false, like she hadn't sat silent through my erasure last night. "Just wanted to check in. How are you feeling after, the big dinner?" I laughed once. Flat. "Is that what we're calling it? Dinner?" A pause. "Look, I know it got weird. You knew, I said, cutting her off. "Don't pretend you didn't." There was a long silence. Then she sighed. Yeah, I knew. I've known for a long time. I closed my eyes. That hurt more than I expected. And you said nothing. What was I supposed to do, Maddie? Start a war? It wouldn't have changed anything. I just wanted peace. Peace. That word again. You didn't want peace, or I said quietly. You wanted comfort. There's a difference. She didn't argue, just whispered, I'm sorry, like it could undo years of complicity. I ended the call without another word. I wasn't angry, not really. Just done. Done waiting for people to grow a spine. Fait. 2. Hours later, I stood in front of Deli's door. She opened it before I could knock. You came, she said. No surprise. Just something steady, like she'd been expecting this moment for years. I stepped inside. Her living room felt like a museum of things the rest of the family had tried to forget. Old photos, dusty books, a framed letter in my mother's handwriting. Deline didn't waste time. I kept everything, she said, walking to a wooden box beside the bookshelf. Because I knew one day you'd come looking for the truth. She handed me a folder. Bank transfer receipts dated 2 weeks before Beckett's launch, signatures, account numbers, legal documents, and then my mother's original will. It was right there, clear as daylight. The fund was meant exclusively for my education, not to be touched under any circumstance. I felt the room tilt slightly. And this? I asked, holding up a yellowed sheet of lined paper. Notes, she said. I wrote them down after conversations with your father when he started rewriting history. You never said anything, and you weren't ready, her voice steady. But now I think you are. I didn't cry. I thought I might, but all I felt was something settling, like truth had weight, and it had just landed in my hands. Back home, I laid everything out on the kitchen table. I scanned every page, matched signatures, checked dates. There was no more room for doubt. This wasn't neglect. This was deliberate. They didn't forget me. They removed me. One decision, one story, one erasure at a time. I opened my laptop, pulled up my legal notes, and began building a timeline. Not out of revenge, but to remember. To put the story back together the way it really happened. They wanted peace. I wanted the truth. And for the first time in years, I felt steady. No anxiety. No spiraling. Just direction. I didn't know what would come next, but I knew one thing for sure. Whatever happened, I'd be the one writing it. 2 mornings later, a courier envelope slid under my apartment door. No knock, no warning, just silence and pressure. Neatly packaged inside was a letter from Marlene's legal assistant. The language was polished, professional, like someone trying too hard to sound polite while handing you a knife. In the interest of maintaining harmony, it read, Ms. Manfred, you are invited to voluntarily step away from the family trust and estate planning process. Such a gesture would reflect goodwill and understanding of broader family dynamics. Goodwill. Understanding. They always used soft words to dress up sharp things. I read it twice. Then again, I printed a copy, pulled out a pen, and signed below. The line. Then I added, by hand, I don't want a cent from people who never wanted me. No ceremony. No lawyer. No audience. Just truth. I folded it once, slid it into a plain envelope, and left it on my kitchen table. My mind drifted back, uninvited, to a different kind of envelope, one that never came in time. 2 years ago, I was in court. When I saw Marlene's name flash on my phone, the text was short. Your mom had a stroke. We at St. Vincent, no urgency, no context. By the time I arrived, the nurses were changing the linens. I never got to say goodbye. A soft-spoken woman in scrubs looked at me and said, Bri, she kept asking if you were on your way. Those words still haunt me. Would you like me to help you polish this even a bit further? For example, give it a slightly more not-literary fiction feel if you're aiming to submit it somewhere? Of course. Here's a polished rewrite of your piece while keeping the strong emotional core and momentum intact. I've aimed for clarity, natural pacing, and sharpening the transitions while preserving your voice. I walked out of that hospital feeling like I'd lost two people, my mother and any last illusion about what this family really was. Later that night, Marlene told me it was just one of those things. I didn't think it was that serious, she said. You were busy with work. Harland never brought it up again. She added, like grief came with an expiration date. I've forgiven a lot of things in my life, but not that. Never that. Now, in the present, I stood by the window, envelope in hand. The city looked calm. Cars humming by, people walking dogs, rain beginning to mist the sidewalks. I held the signed waiver between my fingers. It didn't feel like surrender. It felt like relief. For years, I thought letting go would make me weak. That walking away meant losing. Now I knew better. Staying would have broken me. Leaving saved me. I slipped on my coat, walked 2 blocks to the courthouse mailbox and dropped it in. No tracking, no return address. Just a clean break. I didn't look back. I didn't hesitate. I went home, made tea, and sat in the silence. For the first time in years, the silence wasn't hollow. It was mine. 3 days after Thanksgiving, I sat across from my attorney in a small glass-walled office. Between us rested a legal pad filled with notes, fragments I'd been collecting, for years without realizing it. Receipts, dates, patterns. She flipped through the pages and the documents I'd brought, Deli's paperwork, my mother's original will, the transfer logs that sealed everything. This isn't a fight, she said, tapping a page with her pen. It's a statement. I leaned back. Then make it loud. Ah, I said. She didn't smile. Neither did I. That afternoon, I opened my laptop and drafted one email, just one, but it would land like a bomb. I sent it to every blood relative still breathing, every in-law who fake smiled through betrayal, every lawyer and advisor who helped. Bury the truth. Subject. I thought you should see this attached were 4 PDFs. Bank statements, with highlighted transfers A scan of my mother's original will screenshots of Beckett's company timeline. The guest list for that tribute video, the one where my name was missing, I didn't add a single word of explanation. I hit send. Then I walked away. Within 10 minutes, my phone buzzed nonstop. Cousins, aunts, even a second uncle I hadn't heard from in years. Is this real? Why didn't you say something sooner? I always had a feeling. I ignored them all. Harlan didn't respond. Not a text, not a call. Silence. The same tool he always used when control slipped from his hands. Marlene, though, didn't disappoint. Her reply was short. This is a family matter. Please retract. No apology, no concern. Just a demand masked as etiquette, the Queen commanding the room while the ceiling caved in. I didn't answer. Beckett vanished, too. No calls, no texts, no passive-aggressive subtweets. Total blackout, which meant he was scared. Good. That night, I shut off my phone and poured a glass of red wine. I stood by my window, watching headlights blur across the wet street. Not because I was worried, because I knew exactly what was coming next. At my lawyer's suggestion, we started preparing a formal complaint, not because I wanted money, not even revenge, because sunlight is the best disinfectant, and the rot had spread far enough. It started with whispers. A partner at a firm I once clerked for reached out. Casual tone, serious message. Hey, Maddie, heard you stirred the pot a bit. Beckett's been calling around. Says you're going through something. Says you're making things up. I didn't blink. What exactly did he say? I asked calmly. That you're unwell. carrying family baggage, some kind of breakdown. I laughed. Quiet, dry. He was shopping a narrative. Classic Beckett. If you can't bury the truth, discredit the person who speaks it. He was calling favors, spinning lies, leveraging connections. What he didn't realize was that I'd already walked through fire to get here, and I wasn't stepping back just because he threw smoke. I called Deli. She answered on the first ring. "He's trying to smear me," I said. "He's scared," she said. "And he should be." Then she hesitated. "There's something else." 10 minutes later, she forwarded me a file I hadn't seen in years because she had never sent it until now. It was a scan of a formal HR complaint from my first job out of law school, the one I thought I'd imagined. A missing draft, a leaked pitch, timing that had been too perfect. I thought I was paranoid. Turns out I wasn't. Deli had saved everything. Email headers, screenshots, even the log showing Beckett had remotely accessed my personal computer using an app I'd stupidly left open. He had stolen my ideas and pitched them to a competitor, and it had almost tanked my career. Deli's voice cracked. "Your father made me promise not to tell you," she said. "Said it would only make things worse." I regret listening to him. I thanked her, but I didn't call my lawyer. I called a journalist, a woman who had built her career exposing exactly this. Truth wrapped in betrayal. Scandal hidden under silk ties and trust funds. She didn't ask for proof, she just said, send everything." By morning, the headline was making its rounds. Finance exec accused of corporate theft. Source alleges family cover-up within hours. Beckett's firm went into panic mode. Clients pulled contracts. His face vanished from the company website. His Instagram went private. Harlan tried calling twice. I let it ring. Marlene left a voicemail that was so perfectly on brand, I almost laughed. "You've humiliated us. I hope you're happy. This family supported you, and this is how you repay us." Supported me? They couldn't even spell my name right on birthday cards. An aunt finally cracked. "I always knew something was wrong. I should have said something." Too late. I wasn't angry anymore, just clear. Beckett could spin stories. But this wasn't a courtroom. This was the court of public opinion, and he just lost his jury. That night, a former intern messaged me. Fresh, out of law school when she worked under me, brilliant, quiet, overlooked the same way I had been once. Her message, "Thank you. People like you make room for people like me." I didn't smile, not really, but something inside me settled. They thought I'd set fire to the house. I hadn't even raised my voice yet. The next morning, I walked into the county clerk's office with a folder under my arm and history in my hands. The complaint was ready, typed, formatted, reviewed line by line: misuse of trust funds, forgery of consent, breach of fiduciary duty. 3 names sat at the top: Harlan Renly, Marlene Renly, Beckett Renly. Attached, everything they thought I'd never find: notarized bank records, authorization forms with mismatched signatures, Deli's signed affidavit, verifying the original terms of my mother's will. By noon, the documents were public record. By 4 p.m., they were accessible to anyone with Wi-Fi and a reason to look. I gave them the truth. What the world did with it wasn't my problem. By evening, Beckett's LinkedIn account was gone. His firm issued a vague statement about a temporary suspension pending internal reviews. Translation: dead man walking. Harlan's name disappeared from the Veterans Foundation website. A small note appeared: pending ethics investigation. Marlene canceled her beloved charity gala out of respect for privacy, the statement said. Marlene texted me late that night. "I didn't know it would go this far." I stared at the screen before replying, "You never asked how far it already went for me." She didn't write back. Harlan finally did. Subject line: "Your no longer welcome in this family. There it was, the final brick in the wall they'd spent decades building between us, now handed to me like a souvenir. I opened a new draft, typed, paused, deleted, typed again, and then I didn't send it. Instead, I wrote it out by hand. You erased me. Now I'm just finishing the job you started. I closed the notebook, turned off my phone. There was nothing left to say. No more defense. No more proof. Just distance. The real kind. I sat in my office as the sun dropped behind the skyline, gold leaking through the blinds. The news sites kept spinning, articles reposting, speculation flying. But inside, everything was still, not hollow. Not numb, just quiet. The kind of quiet that comes after you've told the truth, loud enough to be heard, and no longer care who believes it. This sounds like the full text of a spoken-word story, possibly from a YouTube video, podcast, or social media post. It's powerful and emotional, centered around healing after leaving a toxic family or environment and reclaiming personal peace. Here's a summary of the key themes. A simple, genuine gathering with chosen family, friends who are supportive, and authentic. Visiting a mother's grave to express triumph and closure, rejecting toxic family dynamics, even in the face of guilt. Tripping or manipulation. Realizing peace is something you create, not something others can give or take away. Healing doesn't always mean reconciliation. Sometimes it's about letting go, empowering others to protect their peace, choose themselves, and rewrite their stories without needing validation. And near the end, it turns interactive, inviting the listener to reflect. Have you had to walk away to find yourself? Consider, does silence keep peace or prolong harm? Engage. Leave a one matters in the comments if this resonates or explain if it didn't. If you want, I can help you. Turn this into a written article, blog post, or script for yourself. Break it down into a shorter version for a caption or intro. Pull some quotes or key lines you could use elsewhere. Analyze the tone and style if you want to write something similar. Would you like me to help you with one of those?